So I have handpicked some questions from Instagram, and I'm here to answer all of them. I wrote down all the questions on my laptop, which I'm going to answer right now. First question, how old are you? I am turning 20 in 4 months, so that's kind of scary. What is your zodiac sign? I am an Aquarius. Have you done a 16 personality test? If so, what were your results? This is a really interesting question because like a few years ago, I did the test and I got INFJ as my result. But you know, over the years, I've done a lot more like introspection, and I started like asking myself some questions, and I did the test again recently. And I think INTJ fits a little better than INFJ for me. How do you find balance between multiple fields of studies? Now, I've talked about this before. Being like kind of like a multi-potentialite personality, you know, pursuing multiple disciplines. It's not exactly a thing where you go pursue 5 different things out there at once. That's a surefire way to burn yourself out. Have degrees of priorities, so to speak. For example, for myself, writing is like on the top of the chain, even higher than YouTube, even higher than like, you know, some of the schoolwork, university work. I view university studies and doing YouTube as like the building blocks or like supporting pursuits that supports this main pursuit of writing. So have degrees of priorities, figure out, you know, what's my main thing? What's like the one thing that I'm willing to put in like 90% of my effort or like 80% of my effort. Then you can use the remaining 20% to explore, you know, very diverse fields out there, but realize that all of those fields that you explore, all of the 20%, you're not putting as much effort into those 20% as you're putting into your like 80%. So at the end, you'll kind of end up with the letter T. So you have a pretty wide-ranging knowledge in many fields, but you have one thing that's like your expertise, specialty. Yeah, for me, that's writing. You, it might be something different, but use your 20% as supporting material that deepens your understanding of your main thing. So that's how I view the concept of the multi-potentialite. How long have you been playing the piano? At this point, probably over a decade, really. I started playing when I was very young, and you know, those were the days. Getting battered for not practicing properly and having spikes underneath your wrist for not, you know, getting the form right. Horrid memories, but did I regret it? Absolutely no. Favorite author? Now, I don't tend to play favorites with authors. I think, you know, literary work, if it has literary merit, it's going to impact you in specific ways. It's not exactly like, this is my favorite thing, and I'm gonna spend the rest of my life defending this book. That's not how I like to view literature. There are books out there that are very intellectually stimulating. There are books out there that are very funny. There are books out there that are more emotional in nature. So all of these books, they impact me in such different ways that I find it hard to pin down one, you know, favorite book of all time. But there are some books that are sort of like on the top of my list, like James Joyce's James Joyce's Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man, Murakami's Norwegian Wood, and Jack Kerouac's On the Road. What's one super important writing tip that you've learned? Now, I think the most important writing tip for amateur writers, beginner writers, man, you gotta write every single day. You just have to write every single day. This is one of the best tips that I've received because, you know, you can think about writing all you want in your head. You can watch videos on YouTube that teach you how to write better. You can read craft books and you can mull this process in your head over and over and over again. But if you're not setting down words on empty pages, you are not moving forward. Key to writing is to write. It's pretty simple. And the writing tip that follows that piece of advice is that you have to establish some kind of writing routine. So some people criticize me for my robotic or systematic approach to practicing the craft of writing, but it works. Start with 200 to 300 words a day and just do that, for example, for a week, a month, you know. See how you go. Maintain a streak, get into the habit, because the more you write, the more relaxed that you'll become with the entire writing process. So writing should become a part of you, ideally. You shouldn't have some like fantasies about writing and then actual writing is just collecting dust in a basement. Write every single day. Don't expect anything from it. Just set down your words. It's gonna be fine. It's gonna take care of itself down the track. Practice hard, write more, write better, fail better. Margaret Atwood's advice from her masterclass. It works. Favorite dystopian novel? Now, this question sort of like circles back to the question of who's your favorite author, because different dystopians, they deal with different problems. I love all of them, basically. So I've got a few dystopians over here that I really did enjoy. Handmaid's Tale, Margaret Atwood. Fahrenheit 451. This one's really good. And of course, 1984, and last but not least, Brave New World. Despite the fact that these 4 books, they all came from like the dystopian genre, they're tackling radically different social issues. And in fact, one of the reasons for writing L'Académie was because I think there's not exactly a dystopian fiction that deals directly with the education system. So I thought, I'm gonna write something like that, and I'm going to seek inspiration from these dystopian novels. So I wrote L'Académie as a response to the education system. So yeah, I think all of them, they deal with different social issues, and I have equal respect for all of them, and I enjoy them equally. Do you consider yourself an extreme existentialist? Now, this one's interesting. You know that thing where first-year philosophy students, they have like sticks up their asses? Now, I personally think, being this kind of like extreme pessimistic existentialist, I think throughout your intellectual journey, there's gonna be a phase that you'll definitely pass through, where when you first come in contact with works of philosophy, works of literature, it's like your world just opened up. Now, the problem with this like worlds opening up around you is that people around you probably won't get it, and you get the sense of like isolation effect, and that's where you really become an extreme, for example, existentialist, or like you want to call yourself a postmodernist. You want to, you know, I'm smarter than all of you sheeple. And I really do think that's something like every intellectual person, they basically have to go through this process or this phase to get to the next phase, which is the phase of like making peace with the world, but at the same time improving the self. Yeah, I wouldn't really consider myself an extreme existentialist, but I know this urge to sort of want to be that. When you start reading literature, when you start reading philosophy, there's going to be this like phase that you go through where nothing's quite stable, everything's kind of messed up. You know, there's a light at the end of the tunnel where you can come out of that and, you know, really make peace with the world, and then develop your intellect further without having a stick up your ass, so to speak. So you're able to appreciate the world as it is, but you're also able to appreciate higher ideas, so you can mediate between the two poles. And I think that's a harder thing to achieve than being an angsty extreme existentialist. Would you ever consider teaching literature in a university setting? I'm not so sure, because I'm still a freshman. God, give me some time to figure things out. Because currently I think I don't know enough about academia to really make an informed decision. So I think I need more experience in the field. I think in terms of preferences, you know, on paper it sounds good. You know, teaching, writing papers, and reading deeply into literature as a job. I mean, it sounds really brilliant on paper, but I think the reality of academia, I'm not exactly in the field just yet, so I can't really make any judgments. I need more experience before I make an informed decision, but right now I'm really enjoying all the university work that I'm doing. So I think it's definitely a point of consideration in the future. Do you schedule your writing, or is it all over the place? I don't believe in inspiration, so I schedule all of my writing. So right now I'm taking a break from writing because, you know, writing does take a lot out of you. But before, when I was working on L'Académie, or when I was working on my third novel, I had like a pretty militant approach to writing novels. Wake up at a set time in the morning, and for the first like at least an hour and a half, that's me writing the first 500 words of my day. But I think in terms of art and in terms of like creative pursuit, you have to have a mechanism for you to counteract that resistance. Any thoughts on Murakami's writing? I love Murakami. He's one of my favorite writers of all time, and Norwegian Wood, right there on my shelf, I think that's probably one of my favorite books of all time. I do need to read Kafka on the Shore. That's like one of his masterpieces, but Norwegian Wood, Killing Commandator, absolutely brilliant. Favorite part about writing, I love immersing myself in a world. I'm a pretty visual thinker, so whenever I conjure up a scene, it's like literally right in front of me. I just have to dip myself into the world that I've created in my head, and I just have to capture details from that world. That's basically my writing process, and I'm kind of like addicted to that sense of like capturing imagery from my mind's gaze, and I think that's partly the reason why I love writing fiction so much. It's just that I didn't know what was gonna happen. I didn't know what's gonna come out of this piece of fiction, but the world is just literally, it was literally right in front of me in my mind's gaze. And being a journalist of that internal world, like that's the most pleasurable part of writing for me. Talk about the beats. Now, I love the beats. Allen Ginsberg, William Burroughs, Jack Kerouac, and I think the Beats generation really had a huge influence over my own writing. It's the theme of being able to capture everything in kinetic and also in a very exciting prose style. Stressing the phonetics of the prose instead of stressing, you know, the literary content of the prose. That's what I love about the Beats generation. And I think I'll make a dedicated video for this topic of the Beats generation, because it's such an interesting generation of literary writers that I just have to dedicate another video to this topic. So stay tuned for that video. And the last question, what's the one thing that you would tell a teenager heading off to college? Make sure you actually want to go to college, and make sure the subject that you're studying is like aligned with your future vision. The worst thing that you can do is to do a degree just for the sake of completion. It will be a waste of money, and it's going to land you in debt. And if you end up hating your degree, it's not going to land you like a happy job. Dreading school and dreading everything that you do, that's just like a horrible way to live. So make sure you're very sharp and clear about why are you going to college? Why exactly are you in the field? Why exactly are you studying the things that you're studying? For me, it's very clear. I love the French language and I love literature. So it's very easy for me. It was very easy for me to make the decision to study these two fields and to major in the two fields. But this is a complicated problem, and self-discovery is a long, windy journey. Before you go off to college, make sure that whatever you're studying, make sure that it is the field that you want to go into. Don't listen to anyone else. Listen to yourself. That's the best policy. So that's the end of today's Q&A video. There were simply too many questions, so I had to take some cuts. So I had to, cut some of them out. So sorry if I didn't answer your question. But then again, thank you people so much for 60,000 subscribers. This entire thing wouldn't be possible without your support. So then again, thank you. And I hope you've enjoyed today's video. And I'll catch you in the next one.